I'm speaking too fast, which is what I often do, ask Bruna says this all the time, I talk too fast. I will try to slow down, okay? If you don't understand everything I say, you are normal. Okay? If you don't understand everything, don't worry. Even my mother doesn't understand everything I say because sometimes I speak too fast. Okay? So I'm gonna just go over the first couple of slides. I've got a presentation for you, which I'm also going to share with you if you're online. Bruna already sent it to you, but I'm gonna see if I can put it into the chat. It's a PDF, and anybody else who's in the room, if you would like a copy of this, no problem, because Simone will send it to you. If I can get out of I'm trying to close one thing and get to another. I'm gonna try to open up my chat. Also, if you're at home, you can share anything. I've got places to speak where you can put things in the chat. If you're in the room, I think there's a microphone, so if you want to share something, that's okay too. I'm just looking if I can actually share this. I don't know how to do it at the moment. So you let me know how the presentation is going, if it still works for you. If not, I'll try to get you the PDF, okay? So I want to tell you that it's so exciting doing these lessons because when I started this one, those of you who were here the last couple of lessons, you knew that I was not looking forward to this lesson. In fact, but it was my decision to teach country music, and it was because I realized I'm kind of ignorant about it. I know some things, but not very much. So I was interested in learning something new, and I did. And
Well,
I was very surprised at how much I like it now. So just doing that little bit of research opened up a whole new window for me. I realized some really important things. One thing I realized is that there are many, many songs that are part of the American songbook. Remember last week we talked about American standards. We talked about the American songbook, and there are many country music hits that are actually part of that tradition now. And one of them came up before, but that was Neil Diamond with the Daydream Believer, which is Neil Diamond is actually English, I think. But I can tell you that songs by Patsy Cline, that she sings Crazy, which of course was written by Willie Nelson. I Fall to Pieces, There's a Tear in My Beer. Many of these songs that we kind of know, but we didn't really know where they came from. So I have to tell you that thanks to you, I learned a lot of new interesting things this week. I'm going to get going in a second, but I want to remind you that, again, when I do these lessons, I'm not an expert. And when you finish, you probably won't be an expert either, but we learn together. And that's the important thing. And the important thing is that by the end of the lesson, I hope you have some new tools or some new information that can open some windows for you. Maybe some new expressions, because I like to put some of those in there too. So I am going to share my screen. And you can, I realize that, well, we'll go through as we get there. Let me just share my screen. I'm going to go, you know what? I decided to change my mind. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to show you a video first, which is not supposed to be at the beginning, but I'm going to show it to you at the beginning because that way I know that it went to you, that you got the information. Okay. So I'm going to share a small 2-minute video with you about the Grand Ole Opry, which is going to be a focal point of our lesson today. So I hope you can hear it. I don't even know how to tell. Hopefully someone will speak up if you don't hear it, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to put the link into our chat so that you can find that. Let me in case it doesn't work for whatever reason. So hopefully this won't turn on. I'm on YouTube right now, and I'm going back to our lesson where I am going to put the link. It's like COVID has been over for 1,000 years now. I forgot how to do everything. So I'm going to open up my chat. And in the chat, I'm putting this link. This link is the video that I'm going to show now. So if you have a difficult time for some reason seeing the video that I'm showing, or it just doesn't work right, here is the link, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to try to share the video. Okay, you should see my screen. Okay, are you seeing my screen at this point? You should see a big,
Yes.
okay, do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Perfect. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this video. I did put the subtitles on there. They're not perfect, but hopefully they will help you a little bit more. This is about the opening of the Grand Ole Opry. I'm going to turn up my sound. Hope it's not too much for you.
Hello and welcome to History Pod. On the 28th of November 1925, American country music radio show The Grand Ole Opry was broadcast for the first time. The Grand Ole Opry is the longest running radio show in US history and began as a weekly stage concert broadcast known as the WSM Barn Dance. The show was the brainchild of George D. Hay, an experienced radio personality who was hired to be station manager at the newly established WSM AM in Nashville, Tennessee. The station was owned by the National Life and Accident Insurance Company and broadcast from the company's office in downtown Nashville. Hay had previously been the announcer for the National Barn Dance program at WLS in Chicago, and created a version of the station's successful old-time music program when he took up his new position in Nashville. On the 28th of November 1925, the show was launched with a performance by Uncle Jimmy Thompson, a 77-year-old fiddler who'd been recommended by his niece, who happened to work at the station as a piano accompanist. Thompson's performance began at 8 p.m. and saw him take requests from the public, who flooded the station with phone calls and telegrams. His appearance was an immediate hit, but as the program adopted a more formal structure, Thompson's involvement began to decline. Hay began to feature a roster of string bands and singers, and after the broadcast was given a regular Saturday night slot, it was renamed the Grand Ole Opry in May 1926. As the radio show developed a variety format, live audiences were invited to come and watch the show. Due to demand, the Grand Ole Opry was soon forced to broadcast from a procession of larger venues beyond the studio and moved to its current home at the 4,000-seater Grand Ole Opry House in 1974.
All right, so that was our first video. I hope it was clear to you. The thing that stayed with me just now is that the Grand Ole Opry, as it is now, has 4,000 seats. And I think it's often sold out. I looked for today. I was looking for tickets for us to go today. There's a show today. And the last tickets were... Oh, sorry, my thing is still talking. Let me turn that off. Okay, get rid of this. All right, so that's a Grand Ole Opry. So it has, it started out as a radio show and then it became something bigger. So that was the first thing I wanted to share with you. Now I'm gonna go to our actual lesson. See if I can get it here, okay. I feel so slow at this stuff now. Okay, am I sharing? I'm not sharing my screen, so I'm gonna share it now. And let's hope for the best, hey? All right, so you can see my Canva page, and I am going to present the screen. All right, hopefully you can see this now.
Yeah.
Okay, oops, I'm gonna go back. So we're gonna start our lesson here. So today's lesson is on country music. And to give myself some motivation, I said, okay, I'll talk about Dolly Parton, who I love, Willie Nelson, who I kind of like, and Hank Williams, who's just cool. I'm like, if I can put myself, and the Grand Ole Opry, those are my starting points, because I wasn't sure I liked country music very much, but now I'm a big fan. So to remind you, next week is lesson 4. And it's going to be, I will be there in person, okay? My name is Caroline, if you don't know me. Some of you I've known for several years. Some of you I'm just getting to know. So next week we're going to talk about the birth of hip hop, and I will be there to share that with you. So that will be exciting. Then the next week, the 24th of November, we're going to talk about what kids are listening to now. Oops. Here it says what the kids are listening to. And that's also, no, that'll only be online. So again, on that day, you can join online, like today some of you are doing, or you can be there in the Chedak's room and we can speak across that big screen, okay? Then the week after, on the 1st of December, we are going to wrap up this series, which was all about American music, and it's going to be a quiz show. So that means you should have your phone with you, or if you don't have your phone with you, it's fine. You can still participate by screaming the answers. But if you have it, you can also, oh, someone is entering the room. Let me see if I can let them in. Admit. Okay. I've got 2 new people joining the room here. Let me see if I can get that. Okay. Sorry about that. Once in a while I have someone joining and I want to make sure I have everybody comes in. I hope I got everybody. Let me try it again. Okay. I'm just going to check this one more time. I hope there's nobody else waiting. You can, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, or no, let's see what my participants. Welcome. If you just came into the room, welcome. Just making sure that there's nobody else. Okay, nobody else entering the room right now? Okay, we should be good. Okay, so if you just joined us, we're just getting started with our lesson, which today is country music, and then we talked about next week's thing. So let's get on with it. So I've got some, I don't know, I hope you can see my screen all right and that's not blocked. I'm gonna move this thing down here. So my first question is, what images and instruments come to mind when you think of country music? So if you're at home, you can answer in the chat. And if you are in person there, you can maybe share the microphone and we can talk about that, okay? So what images and instruments come to mind when you think of country music? Okay, take a moment to think about it. Maybe you can talk to a partner if you're in person. Talk to the person next to you, that's fine. If you're at home, like Bruna and Lanfranco, you can write in the chat if you have any images.
I don't know how to
To write in the chat?
yeah.
Okay, let me stop sharing for a second. Boop.
Sorry.
So in the, probably at
Chat.
the,
Okay. Chat where chat is. Okay.
yeah, click on that and then you can write in the thing. But since you have your microphone on, why don't you tell me what you're thinking? What comes to mind when you think about country music, Bruna? You can use your voice. You don't have to write it. Is there anyone in the room who wants to tell me? There are many stereotypes. Ah, Maurizio, thank you. He said guitar, of course, right? What kind of guitar? Might be a steel guitar, might be a slide guitar. Yeah, the guitar is definitely part of it. Dilvio, you look like you want to speak.
Yeah, I also said guitar before.
Well done. Good.
Ukulele, maybe.
Maybe ukulele.
The piano.
The piano, sure.
The piano and the banjo.
The banjo, of course.
I read here fiddle too.
A fiddle. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Lanfranco, I can't see your face. Move your video down. So I can
Okay.
see your lips.
Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry,
a fiddle.
Caroline.
Like they don't call it a violin, right? A fiddle, right?
Sorry,
I don't
Caroline.
know.
Only musical instruments or also other things?
Also other images, yeah.
Okay.
Voice.
Okay.
The harmonic, the
Harmonica, sure.
yes.
I mean, the one that you put in your mouth,
Yes,
not
yes, with the
not
mouth.
the fisa
Yes,
musica,
yes.
which would be an accordion. Good. Uh-huh. What about anybody in person? Do you have any images? You have the microphone? You can tell me something? This time in the room, you guys are quiet. I see the harmonica. Okay. I'm going to add. What about cowboys? Do you think about cowboys or anything like that?
Not necessarily.
Yes,
You don't think about.
the country music is the music of the cowboys.
Sure. So you might imagine a cowboy hat or the kind of outfit, boots, cowboy boots. There are lots of images that come to mind when we think about country music, because of the name country music, but it's also country and Western music. It changed with time, right? And so there are images that come up. Let me see if I can show you what Americans think of when they think of country music. I'm going to go back on my slide here.
But you speak about country music today, or in the time, in the old time.
Either way.
It's a way. Okay.
Sure. What do you think of?
Well, I think guitar, banjo, and percussion, battery, or
No.
No,
oh,
not battery. Not
no,
battery.
the
Remember in English we say drums, right? So
drum,
rhythm
okay,
section, there's
drum.
going to be, sure, of course there's going to be some kind of rhythm,
drum
absolutely.
on the tamburello. I don't know.
Oh, tambourine?
Oh, yeah, tamborini.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
some instruments by wood, but I don't know their names.
Okay, sure. Oh, there's
But
line dancing too. I see that. That's a good one, right? Line dancing when
use it
people
in
are in a
country-
row and they're dancing together. That's definitely an image we see from country music. And that is very popular in Italy right now. In Trieste, we have a giant group of people who get together and do line dancing. Very popular. Let me
Yes,
see if I can, yeah, Lanfranco.
In the country music, the instruments are acoustic, mainly acoustic instruments.
Yeah, that's the image we have. Of course, there's also electric guitars. They might be, specially rigged a certain way to reverberate differently. But yeah, there's definitely this idea of like one person playing a guitar maybe, or a small group, but definitely those are things. So Sylvia is correcting us, yeah. The batteria is a drum kit or drum. So you could say
Yeah,
someone
the
who
drum.
plays the drums, or yeah, if you've got a specific
I
kind of
remember the popular film movie Blues Brothers, the Blues Brothers. When the group play in the pub, the battery is present, the drums is present.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Blues Brothers is not country.
but Blues Brothers
rock.
in the movie,
Yeah.
when the group play in the pub, the group sound country play.
Right. And we're going to talk about how, country is kind of everywhere. Again, this is some of the stereotypes that we have. Let me show you what I had in mind when I was thinking about the images that come to mind. And I apologize if you're in the room and I didn't hear you. You wanted to contribute. This time we're sort of more, I'm able to talk to the online people better. Usually when I'm in person, it's easier for me to talk to the people who are in person. So one of the groups is going to suffer a little bit, but I hope that if you're in the room, you can talk to each other too. And if you want to share with us, great. And if not, you share with each other. Let me just share what I've got. Go back to our thing. So these are some of the stereotypes that we Americans have. Okay. So the first one that comes to mind, of course, is this cowboy. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Okay.
Yes.
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 Okay.
More or less, yes.
More or less, it's not a great. Okay.
Gray line.
There is a stripe.
What?
To the south, there is a cowboy, of course.
Yeah, okay, so I'm looking at the bottom left hand. There's a cowboy. He's got an open range behind him. Okay. Then on the right here, I've got a map that's showing the South, because we have a tendency to think that country music is about the southern United States. Then we've got a Confederate flag, which for if you're in the South, we have a stereotype that goes along with that. Many of you in Italy know this as the flag of the General Lee from the Hazard show. Do you remember that from the, Azad, I think you call it.
But this is the stars and bars.
Yeah. Stars and bars, right? So it's the Confederate flag. But now actually, country music is trying to disassociate with this flag because it has a lot of connotations that many people don't agree with.
Attention, but this is not the flag of the Confederation. This is not the flag of the Confederation. This is the flag of the Virginia Army, the biggest army of the Confederation, the Virginia Army, the Army of Virginia. The flag of the Confederation is another one, with a lot of white.
A lot of white too. Okay. Anyway,
the
some version of this is one that we identify. Huh?
This is the wartime standard.
This is the?
Wartime standard.
Okay. Anyway, this is the sort of a popular image that people sometimes associate with country music, but the country music world is trying to disassociate from it. Then there's always the animals. So many songs about, about animals, about dogs especially, because you can count on your dog, but maybe not on your partner. And then there's a lot of imagery about drinking. So drinking beer especially. So these are some of the images that come up there. And I have to say I'm guilty of this, of having some of these prejudices, having some ideas about about country music that maybe aren't all true. One of them is that there's kind of a mythology that says that country music is about, Southern white men, mostly men, that it's more conservative. There are these an identity that goes with it, but it's not necessarily reflecting the truth. So I went into this thinking some of the things that you see here. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's true. But then when I started digging around and started remembering and putting information together, there are many, many clues that this is not really the case, right? Even information that I had that I just wasn't using to reason with. So I'm going on to the next slide, if it'll let me go. So I love this image. This came from the New York Times from a few years ago, but I put the source here for you, where it says that country music is a result of cross-fertilization. And this is, if you followed some of the lessons that we've done so far, you know that we have this idea about swing music, about American music in general, that it's like one identity, but it's not. It's all cross-fertilization, right? On the left, we have Jimmy Rogers, who is one of the earlier musicians from in country music, whose teacher was African American. Leslie Riddle was an African American, teacher of the blues, right? Maybelle Carter's she and her sister, and I think it was the father who put together one of the first groups that performed at the Grand Ole Opry, and they were women, and they were inspired by African American music also. Okay, A.P. Carter, same thing. Charlie Pride was the first African American person of color even to win, to be on the Grand Ole Opry, but also to win really important recognition as a country music hero. Patsy Cline is a woman, Loretta Lynn, two of the, very famous country singers. So when we think about country, it's not just cowboy white men, it's also African Americans, it's also women. There's a lot going on there. So we're going to look a little bit more about that. And there's a lot of information, lots of things to read and find out about it. So I'm going to ask you, who are these people? I can tell you that these two are the same, and her name's right there. So that gave you an easy one. I'll give you a hint. These two are actually the same person. And the other two, I'm not going to even tell you. So see if you can guess who those people are.
This is difficult. Too much American.
Too much American, too American.
Yeah, maybe the one that in the left corner or in the corner in the canton. Yes. In the right side of the screen is Hank Williams.
The man?
Yes, the
or
man
in the middle?
The man. No, in the right side. In the right side.
This is not Hank Williams.
No,
This is
no.
Hank Williams, though.
He is Hank Williams. In the middle.
Yeah, in the middle, the one with the cowboy hat is Hank Williams. Okay, now I just want to see who's
this little boy
someone
with the banjo is beautiful.
Yeah, wait, I was looking for it. I know you can see all this jumping around, looking to get back to our lesson because I want to see, someone wrote in the chat and I want to see what was written. Let me stop sharing for a moment. I'll go back to it. What is in our chat? Let's see. Mandolin, okay. Okay. Good. Let me get back to sharing. It's kind of a pain, all this Zoom stuff. I want it to be easier by now, but it's not. Okay, so we decided that the person in the middle with the cowboy hat is Hank Williams, okay, who is deemed one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century, which is incredible because he died when he was only, I think, 29 or 30 years old. But he became very, very important very fast. He was Hank Williams Sr. This baby with him, of course, is Hank Williams Jr. So Hank Williams Jr. lost his father when he was about 4 years old. So Hank Williams died when he was, I think he was 29 or something. And his son was only 4 years old. And his son grew up also to be a famous country music singer, which is this. This is Hank Williams Jr. So the baby is now this man. Okay. We saw Dolly Parton. I put Dolly Parton in the 60s and Dolly Parton, maybe she's in this photo, she's probably in the 1980s, but she's deemed the queen. She's the diva of country. She's the queen of country, very important. And also important for bringing country music to the masses. She was one of the famous sort of crossover people, okay? This man up here on the right is Willie Nelson. Maybe you've
Willie
heard of him.
Nelson. Willie Nelson.
If you haven't heard of Willie Nelson, I'm sure you've heard many of his songs because he's a prolific songwriter. And he, in fact, wrote the song that Patsy Cline, who's right here in the bottom right, she sang one famous song called Crazy, which is a standard. It's a country music standard, and it was written by Willie Nelson. And this, of course, I told you this guy's name before, right? Who did I say was the first African American? Charlie Pride is his name. And very important, first African American man, or African American at all to be on the Grand Ole Opry. So let's move on with our talk here. So who are these people? Maybe these faces are a little more familiar to you.
I don't know.
I hope the woman in the middle is more familiar to you. I think she's the richest woman in the world right now.
Uh,
Do you know her name?
No?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Yes, she's
Taylor
Taylor
Swift, huh?
Swift. She's a Swiftie. We're Swifties. If you like her, you're called a Swiftie. She's, I think, one of the most intelligent people in show business right now. And she's very, very wealthy because she insisted to get paid equal to men. So actually, she gets paid much more at this point. Next to her on the left is Beyonce, who you've heard of, is also a very good businesswoman. And then on the right is Little Nas X. Okay, so these are three people whose names have been coming up lately in music. Taylor Swift, because she is so incredibly popular right now, but she started as a country music singer. Then she crossed over into pop music, but she still has that country beginning. And then you have Beyonce, who has been famous for a long time as another great singer, but she decided to do a country music album, and she got a lot of criticism about this, like, oh, how could you do that when country music is white music? And she was the first to say that's not true. It's always been a mix, okay? And Little Nas over here made a song a couple of years ago that went viral, and he was just interested in country music. He made a song. It was #1 on the country charts, and people were, they loved it, but then they got critical of him, saying, wait a minute, who's he? He's a rapper. He can't have a country hit. But then some of the country music heroes made music with him to kind of make him more legitimate, let's say, and more widely accepted by people who didn't want to accept him at first. So those are the newer faces of country. Now, some of you recognize these images from the lessons we've done already. And the question is, what do they have to do with country music? Well, in the middle, we have Tin Pan Alley again. If you remember Tin Pan Alley, that was that area in New York City where many important, where a lot of important music was produced, okay? We talked about the American Songbook. How many of our American music was actually composed and published and plugged? Remember we talked about pluggers, people who promoted the music from Tin Pan Alley. Well, Tin Pan Alley had its own, there was country music coming out of Tin Pan Alley also. And not only that, Tin Pan Alley influenced how the country music world decided to market their own music. So Tin Pan Alley had a much wider influence than we knew, at least when we were talking about these other talking about our other types of music. I keep going back to this same image of the radio. The radio, of course, was also instrumental in getting these different types of music a larger audience. We talked last week about Benny Goodman's his variety show, his music show on Sundays. A lot of the radio shows were live with live musicians. So the Grand Ole Opry started as a radio show. First it was in Nashville, and then it was picked up by WLS in Chicago, which still exists. And from there, WLS, the radio station, it's an AM radio station, and it has such a huge coverage. I remember one time that my family, when I was very small, we were driving from South Dakota, which is out west, to Wisconsin, where I'm from, and we could already hear WLS on the AM, frequency. We could hear it all the way from South Dakota. So you can imagine how wide of an audience you could get, maybe even more then. Okay, and we talked about the jukebox, just about records and things, because the history of country music goes way back. It goes back to the same time as all the other music that we've been talking about lately. So Nashville then has its own Tin Pan Alley, okay? Tin Pan Alley meaning a place where this is sort of the heart of where music is made, especially country music, okay? But of course, just like Tin Pan Alley, there are people who are writing music outside of that. So when the heart of country music was maybe in the South, Nashville is still the center. It is still the center, but of course there are other places as well where the people are publishing music. But if you've ever been to Nashville, you know that really the economy of the town is built around music. Even there are many other beautiful things to see, but music is definitely part of the DNA of Nashville. It's a wonderful city. And then, of course, we have the Grand Ole Opry. You saw the video, so you saw them talking about how it was a variety show. Now, a variety show is a show on the radio that has both music, it has interviews, it has skits, people acting and doing little skits. It had a little bit of everything because these shows were really long. Sometimes they were 3 hours long and they had to fill up that time. So for the Grand Ole Opry, it started out as a simple radio broadcast, but then it became more, people were so excited about it that they had to put it into a theater, then a bigger theater, and then the theater that it's in now. You can see the old version of it on the left, but then you can see a more modern version. It hasn't changed that much, has it? I love the guitars out front. I would love to go. I've never been to the Grand Ole Opry. I've been to Nashville, I loved it, but now I'm kind of interested in going to see a show there. So we watched this video, which you see on the side, okay? But it's interesting to note that look at the date. It's the 28th of November, 1925. So it's going to be 100 years this year that the Grand Ole Opry has been broadcast. So it's also televised, of course. So you can listen to it on the radio, you can watch it on television, and you can also go to the live shows. So I have some country music idioms for you that I want you to see if you know any of these. So these are idiomatic expressions that date from, or they came from, either country music or the country music scene. How many of them do you know? Let's see. We've got hold your horses, kick up your heels. We have all hat, no cattle, two-stepping, on the road again, crying in your beer, and a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. Anybody want to make a guess on what any of those mean?
Yeah, hold your horses means hold on or wait up. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean wait, it means whoa, like slow down, be
Slow
patient,
down.
okay? My mother used to say this when we'd be like, "Come on, can we do this?" And she would say, "Hold your horses," meaning wait, be patient, okay? Then we have to kick up your heels. What does that one mean?
Up your heels.
You know, your
Start
heels are
to
the back of your foot, right?
begin to work.
Yeah, what's actually it's more to have fun. Kick up your heels, have a little bit of fun. You can almost imagine the person jumping and clicking their heels, right? So that one's kick up your heels, have a little bit of fun. What about all hat, no cattle? Hat, of course, is your cowboy hat, and a cattle would be your animals, right? Your if you're a cowboy, you gotta have your cows and
A lot
your
of a lot of
all
words
no
and
cattle.
no action.
Yeah, it could be all, all talk and no action. That's one interpretation. Sometimes people use this expression to talk about someone who wants to appear like they're rich, but they're not. So, like the person who has the very expensive, beautiful car, but you have no money in your bank account, which is which is the case for many
Much,
Americans. So, all hat, no
much
cattle
ado
means you're
for
trying to
nothing.
advertise yourself as being rich, but you're not. Then, two-stepping. What is two-stepping? Silence. Nobody knows this one. Good. At least you learned one thing from me. Two-stepping
A
is the
dance.
dance that you do with country music. Silvio, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I said a dance, maybe.
Oh, okay. Didn't hear you. Good. So two-stepping is just a dance. You do 1, 2, 1, 2. On the road again.
On the road again.
Beh, this expression is
Bravo?
easy.
Huh?
This expression is easy, I
What does
think.
it mean?
On the road again, we begin again to do something.
Sure. I'm back on the road again. And what does it come from?
From a song. On
It's
the
a
road
song by
again.
Willie Nelson. It's called On the Road Again, and it's an American standard. It said, On the road again, I just can't wait to get back home again. So, another standard by Willie Nelson. And then we have Crying in Your Beer. This comes from another song. I think it may come from Hank Williams, called There's a Tear in My Beer. Because I'm lonely for you, dear. So this is part of one of the stereotypes of the tropes of country music is people are always depressed about something. It's usually about love and then heartbreak and they're crying into their beer. Okay? So when you're kind of depressed and you're having a drink about it, you're crying in your beer. And then we have them a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, that should have been the title of this lesson. What does that mean? No guesses. Well, it's kind of self-explanatory, isn't it? You're a little bit of one thing and another thing. So when we think about all American music is a fusion of different things. So if you're a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll, it means that you've got different interests, that you're into different things, right? So let's move on here. Oh, gosh, we're already at this point. Now I feel like I'm missing. I had a couple. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment because I wanted to find, I had a couple of quotes that I wanted to share with you that I think are really fun. I have to find them. Let's see. We skipped a couple of slides. So now I'm going to go back and I am going to share okay, you should see my screen now. And I have quotes about country music. One, oops, not this one. This was about the thing. So if you write the truth and you're writing about your life, it's going to be country. That was a quote by Loretta Lynn, another famous icon for country music. Then the second one is you take country music, you take black music, and you got the same goddamn thing exactly, which was a quote by Ray Charles. So Ray Charles in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, I mean, if he died, it was recently. And he was interested in country music because he felt that it was the same language as black music. And in fact, in many ways it was, right? Or it is.
He acted in the Blues Brothers. He was in the Blues Brothers.
He was what?
He acted in the Blues Brothers. There was
Oh, Ray Charles.
Ray
Yes,
Charles.
you're right. He did. He
Yeah,
did.
the movie. The movie.
And then the last one is the songwriter Harlan Howard once defined country music as three chords and the truth. Three chords imply simplicity, but the truth part is always much more complex and more profound. Okay, so all three of these quotes talk about real life. In fact, country music is also known as something that has a lot to do with just storytelling. And that's why there's a lot of things about, heartbreak and, living the life. And it's often about working people, poor people. In fact, we talked about Dolly Parton before, and Dolly Parton was from a very poor family. In fact, I'll stop sharing. We can talk about Dolly for a second. And Dolly, I think there were 12 kids in her family.
Oh,
Yeah, 12. And the mother, Dolly Parton's mother, was the mother of 12 before the age of 35. She actually had, I think she had 9 pregnancies. There were one set of twins there. I think the last one were twins. But they lived in a 2-room house. So there were all these children in 2 rooms. So Dolly Parton, of course, has this thing about, how poor they were, but she said they always had something to eat. So in fact, she wrote a cookbook recently with her sister with the recipes from growing up. But a lot of her experience has to do with the poverty that she endured. And I was looking at some of the things that these singers had in common, and one of them is just like some of them lost parents early, like Hank Williams, Senior, lost his parents early. He didn't grow up with his family. Willie Nelson also lost his parents early. I think they split up and then they left him with the grandparents. He grew up without his parents. Hank Williams Jr., his father died when he was very young. So that seemed to play a part in some of these people, but also poverty and also the church. Many of them started playing the guitar, either it was given to them or they had made their own, and they were singing at church. That was one of the things that they had in common. And the other one is just the Grand Ole Opry. So all of these artists played at the Grand Ole Opry. That was the kind of the thing that brought them together. Hank Williams Sr. wanted to join. He wanted to be at the Grand Ole Opry, but he was refused the first time. But by the time he got very famous, they asked him, and then he went. So there's this thread that brings them together. But I think also the African American contribution to country music for me was a new revelation for me because I didn't know that much about it. I didn't know that Ray Charles was a huge fan of country music, Beyonce, some of these people are, even the fact that Charlie Pride existed, right? That he was the first post-war Black artist to have a #1 country hit. And he was the first artist of any color to win Country Music Association's Male Vocalist of the Year, but 2 years in a row, right? So, some of these things we have, they're not really communicated. Also, even the type of music that country music, many of the most famous country musicians from the 1920s until now were influenced by Black music. Okay, because they were getting the rhythms of bluegrass and what else was out there. Just we think about in the early days, country music was called hillbilly music. So there's the idea of the hills. A hillbilly is a derogative name for someone who's from out in the country. And of course, it wasn't very acceptable. People were looked down upon for being hillbillies. And at the same time, another type of music they called it race music. And race music was actually just African American music, early African American music. So both of these types of music were considered below not acceptable, not socially acceptable, let's say. But at the same time, they were learning from each other. And Ray Charles, who was really into rhythm and blues, but also gospel and hillbilly music, you put them together and you get another type of music that we're going to find in the 1950s called rockabilly. And rockabilly music is where Elvis started. If you know Elvis Presley, his music, he started with just gospel music. And gospel music was black music from the black churches, right? So Johnny Cash was another one who was highly influenced by these different types of music and was part of the rockabilly movement. Then you have even we talked about Willie Nelson, but also Hank Williams Jr. They started a whole subgenre of country music that they called outlaw music. An outlaw is someone who's going outside of the law, because they felt that the Nashville sort of rules, the Grand Ole Opry rules, were a little bit too limited for them. They wanted to be free. And so they were part of the country and Western also, because Willie Nelson was from Texas, right? Wouldn't consider himself a Southerner. He would consider himself a Texan. And so it's just interesting to see how these different families, these important families, the Carter families, I talked about them before. A.P. Carter was the father. He had his daughter singing, and they were going around the country collecting songs. That's what they did first. They were collecting songs so that they could have the daughters. Oops, I've got Lanfranco just jumped out, just got back in. So he was collecting music, and he brought with him this A.P. Carter. You saw a picture of him, sort of, looks like a Southern white man, but he was traveling around the country collecting melodies from around the country that they could reproduce. And he brought along with him a black, African-American guitar player who could remember the melodies for him. Okay, because many of these musicians were not music readers or writers, so having someone with you who could actually record the music. And so there's very much a mixed feeling. There were the best musicians were black and white, and they were working together. So I think that my takeaway from doing the research into these different lessons has been really about how we've been kind of lied to. Music has been marketed in a sort of interesting way to be sort of white or black, or when really the best music we have is because musicians work off each other. Musicians are inspired by each other. We see this in art all the time too. We talked about the Harlem Renaissance. We talked about, white musicians going and copying the music from black musicians sharing, being fans of other people's music. I think it's just fascinating when you look at even Taylor Swift, what she's doing now. I mean, she's become the richest woman on the planet probably, because she is respecting all these different types of music but never forgetting where she's coming from. Next week we're going to talk about hip-hop. Now, hip-hop, when I was growing up, was considered black music, and white people were not supposed to listen to it. And I'm not from a segregated state. I'm from the North. And then you had this Eminem come in, white guy, who comes in and just, boom, changes all the rules, right? And the black people are like, what's this guy doing here? He can't be one of us. But this has happened at every juncture of American music. There's always this sort of identity thing happening, where people trying to identify, trying to put something into a certain box. But as soon as we start simplifying things and making them, categorizing them in a very limited way, that's when the music loses its importance. If we think about the swing era we talked about last week, we saw that when did it lose its power? It lost its power when the rules became too rigid, right? Then people are like, oh, this is so boring, let's go over here. Now I can say that one more note about the Tin Pan Alley that I thought was interesting was how it influenced country music, and it led to the widespread, dissemination of country music, also because Tin Pan Alley music had 32 bars. So it had a very strict structure, and it lasted for a certain amount of time. Country music didn't have that yet. They adopted it thanks to Tin Pan Alley. So I thought that was interesting. So everybody's taking what works in the different areas and using it for themselves. Patsy Cline, who did the crazy song, Crazy, Crazy for Feeling, okay, which is written by Willie Nelson, that broke the rules of country music because before then, country music was supposed to be 2 or 3 chords maximum because it's popular music. You want it to be something that people can play themselves, that they can reproduce, that they can remember, that can become a standard. Well, that one had something like 7 chords in it, and that was more complicated. That sort of hadn't been done. Even the way it was produced, they produced it in a way that had a much richer use of voice and harmonies and background that hadn't been done before in country music. So even that one song brought country music to a whole different level, and it was thanks to what they learned from Tin Pan Alley, right? And Patsy Cline actually was plugged that song. Someone had to demonstrate that song to her to get her to decide to sing it, right? So we talked about the pluggers, the people whose job it is to promote a certain song. And that song was promoted to another artist who didn't like it because he didn't like Willie Nelson's voice. But when Patsy sang it, she put in her own thing, right? So all of these little things I found super interesting. And I hope that it's opened something up for you. So I'm going to stop where I'm now. I think I got to the point where you're an expert. And I'll let you give me any comments or anything that's on your mind once you've heard this, especially if you've been to the other lessons. Anything that surprised you or that you found interesting? Bruna?
Oh,
Can't hear you. They have to turn on your mic.
I have just understood that I had a completely wrong idea about country music. Or if I think about country music, I think about Carole King, James Taylor, Carlos Simon, Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, and this kind of music. And I had no idea about, we are talking about different times because the beginning was in the 1926, 25, I don't know. And yeah. I speak about 1970s or a little bit earlier. But this is the idea I have about country music. James Taylor, Carole King, and
Carole King, Carly Simon. Yeah, and you know what? For a good reason, because they were also influenced by country music. Now in America, we would call that folk music, but folk music, what is folk music? Folk music is
it is country rock.
Hank Williams Sr. was a folk musician, right? And, also, so I think you're right. I didn't talk at all about that because they don't sort of come up, we have sort of a different category for them, but you're right. They're absolutely, we could talk about that with them. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Franco.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young in the West Coast was, West Coast music had country roots, but it was country rock, an evolution, an evolution of country. It was country rock.
In fact,
always a lot. How can I say? A lot acoustic, like the country, but it was a lot of rock too. The origin was rock. No, the roots were country, but it was country rock. No. Sure. And the Eagles too, for example, no? The Eagles, that group.
Yeah,
no?
Because rock and roll also comes out of country, right? All of these influences come together and they create subgenres. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, it's very interesting. This summer in Trieste, we had our 4th of July Independence Day, and we decided to do country music, and we decided to have line dancers, the line dancer group in Trieste. And I was so surprised that the music that they danced to was not what I would consider country music. They were line dancing to the music that you're talking about. So it's very interesting to me that even that, it's like, because I never thought of, okay, this is also considered country. So it's interesting, our perceptions about it, what my ideas changed as a result of this. Looks like Bruno's changed too. So yeah, you just realize that music is all created in, everything's kind of bouncing off each other and they're influencing each other, almost like a jazz band, right? And then something different comes out.
It is only a develop, no? it is always a develop, no?
Yeah. Interesting.
So, personally, thinking about country music, I have the idea of Western movies, shootouts, and saloons.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, train robberies, things like that.
Train
But
robberies.
what we don't think about, and what I didn't talk about, was like Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks still is actually, our Billy Ray Cyrus, who's the father of Miley Cyrus, who you might know. These are people who brought country music to a very, very big audience. Garth Brooks in the 80s and 90s was playing sold out stadium shows all over the United States. So this music exploded in the 1980s and 90s, and people who had never thought about listening to country music because they had preconceptions about it, really went over to it. And there's some amazing performers who came out of that time. And then you also have people who, like Johnny Cash, for example, who is definitely considered a country musician, but made albums with rock bands in the 1990s, and you just like Roy Orbison did, So it's interesting to see when and how these very talented musicians can also find inspiration still in younger people in different genres, etc. So I think music does that. It brings us together. It opens up our eyes, and it is always creating new things. And I think that's what's so magic about it. So I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of get more information about this. I have the lesson in PDF form already for you. So if you'd like it, talk to Simone. And I think if you signed up, then you definitely, if he has your email, you will probably receive that either tonight or tomorrow. So I'll see you next week in Bolzano. I'm so excited. Thank you for everybody who's in presence now. I'm sorry I can't see you, but I know you're there, and I'm so happy that we were able to spend some time together. Next week, I can't wait to look you in the eyes again, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Caroline.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.